What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here alongside Josh Davis. Welcome to the Wednesday Link Live. And Josh, you probably saw, people who are in the chat probably saw, the Eagles have made another roster move, this time losing somebody, and it is Avonte Maddox, as he is a cap cut casualty. Adam Schefter has it up on your screen right there. They released Maddox after 6 seasons. He had a $9.6 million salary cap hit for 2024, but in reality, Philadelphia's only going to save about $2 million towards the cap, so it's not like a massive save here, Josh. But the latter part of this tweet says, the two sides will keep talking and are open to a reunion, meaning he's likely going to come back to Philadelphia for a much cheaper, team-friendly deal. What are your initial thoughts here on what's happening with Avonte Maddox?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it's I guess it's starting, right, or it's already kind of started, but you begin to get a lot more releases or official news and just things like that.
A lot of them.
Yeah, it's like it was expected. It's not too shocking necessarily, because like you were talking about, and we've mentioned several different times, it's the fact that Maddox can't stay healthy, and like there's an emotional tie certainly for me, and I think a lot of people have like, okay, it's Avonte Maddox, and like he's been here in Philly, and he kind of embodies that way. But again, it's like you can't really you just can't bank on him. And so if he can't be on the field to be productive, then it's a what have you done for me lately, or just really anything in general. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how it ends up playing out. He could certainly come back too. I mean, the report is obviously if you get a cheaper deal on that side. But yeah, right now you're looking at not having Maddox. And also I don't know if they said before. There's the possibility. I suppose they could like designate him as a post June 1st cut. So you'd save a little bit more money in that way, but I don't know what. And so I guess we'll see on that side of where they're going to go with it.
I'm being told that I sound weird. I'm trying to here. Let's see. Does that sound normal? Everyone in the chat. Everyone says I sound like I'm inhaling helium. Do I sound normal to you?
You've been good. For on my side, it seems fine. It didn't change.
Right. I just replugged back in the old microphone. We'll see if it works. If I still sound like I have super high pitch, let me know down below in the comment section. We'll try to get this thing figured out.
Let us know.
I can also pull it up. Your live is really glitchy on your side, Thomas. Sounds high pitch, laggy. Sounds normal though. It's almost like it's sped up. Huh? I do not know what is going on. Oh, someone just
sounds
said
clear to me.
Better.
So.
Let's make sure it sounds better here before we continue to roll.
Okay.
I think someone's saying I got one person saying it's better. Bueno, he fixed it. All right, we're good. Okay, so back to the regular scheduled process here. Yeah, I agree with you. Nothing shocking here. I think what's shocking is the rest of the National Football League, like the Buffalo Bills, for instance. Veteran safeties and veteran corners are getting cut left and right. Jordan Poyer, and once an Eagle who was released by Howie Roseman, his rookie contract, or his rookie season, is now available. He's 31 years old. I mean, there's a lot of guys over the age of 30 who have been released, and it's really going to be interesting to see what Philadelphia wants to do in terms of fixing the safety position. Do they want to go for somebody young in the draft? Do they want to try to make a big-time trade? Do they want to go get somebody who's a little bit older and a little more experienced? I don't know what they're going to do at safety, but the fact that it's gotten to a point where all these people are getting released is fascinating for one point, but also really, really good news for Philadelphia because they're going to have options. They will have most likely 2 starting new safeties and for sure a new starting nickel cornerback. I know a lot of people are saying Isaiah Rodgers is the answer here for Avonte Maddox being let go. Do you think that's the case? He played a lot of outside cornerback, a little more slot cornerback in college. Where are you at on Isaiah Rodgers?
Yeah, I think that it is interesting because I think that the natural fit, and like we've talked about a couple different times, is the outside. Right. Again, because of where he's played and the very limited in the slot. But I could also see the argument too, because of his size and depending on where you go with, corner, whether it is get another free agent or in the draft. I'm going to keep saying it until we get to draft night. Probably. I don't think it's going to change, but Quinyon Mitchell is my favorite selection there. Certainly after the combine. I mean, he just lights out 4.33, the strongest in terms of bench press at the corners. So he just improved his stock. I mean, I don't think it's realistic at this point that you get him at 22, you'd have to trade up. But still, again, whatever you do there in the draft, I think it could dictate. If you get a bigger physical corner and you say, hey, let's use Slay and that other corner on the, second corner slot, or spot, and then you have the slot for Rodgers, then sure, you could go with that side. But he does have experience on both, and it's never a bad thing to have that hybrid flexibility and be able to play at multiple spots. So I like that element of it. But if I had to guess right now, I would assume that they're going to try to make him play the slot, especially with this move of Avonte Maddox. Again, not super surprising there, but you kind of already have the pieces in play to say, hey, can we get Isaiah Rodgers to be the guy? great if he can. If not, we still have the option of him being a depth piece on the outside.
Keep an eye on Kenny Moore as well, the Colts free agent. He's now technically available, one of the better slot cornerbacks in the league. Philadelphia was reportedly interested in him at the trade deadline. We've heard that the past couple of seasons. Didn't obviously make it happen, but Kenny Moore would be another option to go ahead and get if they want to add to the overall pool and if they don't bring back Maddox. But again, it sounds like they're just going to bring back Avonte Maddox. Like they're just going to bring him on a much more team-friendly deal where they don't owe him $9.8 million against the cap, or whatever number it was, and that way Philadelphia has more maneuvering room. We got to be honest here, though, Josh. They have money. Like, they have some serious money to go out and make some $44 million plus is a ton of money. And now Kelce being gone, we can talk about that, frees up maybe an extra, $500,000, maybe an extra $1 million. Like, it's almost $45 million in cap space. And we know how he's going to be aggressive. And despite what happened at the latter end of the season this past year, the offense is going to remain basically the same with a new offensive coordinator. So hopefully better, which was once one of the top scoring teams in the league, 11 weeks into the season. Yeah. But you should also put a lot of money into the defense. And if they're able to do that, this can be very, very interesting in terms of how many people they can sign with a $44 million deal. Like, for instance, today, I saw the report saying that JariusSneed is going to cost you $20 million a year. It's like, okay, you could sign JariusSneed after you trade for him and still have $22 million left over to go for somebody who's $10 million a year, $15 million a year. They got some spending power.
Yep, there's a lot of options, and again, it's a good place to be in. I'm going to be curious, and that's what we're all interested to see. And next week's going to be crazy, wild, ridiculous. It's just going to become unreal, but it's exciting too because as we start to build this roster, and like you talk about, there are options. And so I'm with you of the sense of like you have the ability to go out and get a bigger move.
Right.
I can't imagine that you're going to go and make a trade in the sense of like, okay, you got to get rid of draft capital and sign someone, if you're going with a JariusSneed in that instance. However, like the idea of spending bigger money for someone, I'm totally on board with that. Like to me, it feels like it'd be more of a safety, at least what I'm leaning towards, is a safety linebacker type of scenario. Maybe you try to go for both in free agency, and then less on the corner position, just with, a couple being the more mainly top guys getting franchise tagged, and then see what you could do possibly in the draft and go that route. That would be my pick. But I mean, honestly, I said it, yesterday as well, but like to me, Xavier McKinney makes a ton of sense at safety. I know that's going after the top guy, and certainly with cap space and all this other stuff, you might not be able to compete with the top teams if they're saying, nope, that's who we want. We're going to pay him whatever and just move on. But that would be my top preference. But I don't know. Again, with Fangio, the way that he utilizes safeties and linebackers, those are kind of the two spots for me. But do you have a favorite? I guess I know there's a ton of great options out there, but do you have a favorite free agent or like one guy that you're like, man, we just should really go out there and target that dude?
I like what Daz said. He said, get Van Ginkel, obviously a connection to Fangio. Get Wilkins, who's going to be a free agent, who's really good. Wilkins could be someone they really might be interested in. He did great in the Fangio system and would kind of be a little bit of he's not a depth signing because he's a starter caliber player, but depth to add to the defensive tackle. And then Xavier McKinney. Now, again, that's a lot of money for those three players, but I definitely think that there are some options there. I think Van Ginkel is probably the one that I would almost guarantee is going to happen. What I'm fascinated by are these reports that continue to surface, including today. I talked about it on my show, that the Eagles are interested in Saquon Barkley, and I just can't actually buy into those rumors because it doesn't make sense from a Howie Roseman perspective. Like, Howie Roseman has not spent money on a big-name running back since DeMarco Murray, and Howie Roseman wasn't really in control back then. It was more Chip Kelly. Like, that was the last time they gave somebody a 5-year, $40 million deal to DeMarco Murray. We all know how that turned out. They also signed Ryan Matthews that same year. Since then, they've gotten rid of Shady McCoy. They didn't re-sign Miles Sanders. Like, they've not invested into running backs. I'm sitting here like everyone else saying re-sign AndreSwift, but do you buy into any of these rumors? We've seen it twice now in the past 2 days that the Eagles have shown interest in Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it too, but I'm with you. I really can't buy into any of it. It's just like you're talking about. It's not what Howie does. And it's also, it's like there's a difference between telling me, hey, Howie's going to invest in the runner, in a running back, versus, hey, Howie's going to invest in a linebacker, right?
Yeah.
Like the difference is you can point to, hey, there's like not really a case in point. Howie could say, hey, it's worked out. Like it worked out last season with AndreSwift, and it worked out previously with Miles Sanders, and it just worked out with insert whoever he can get, right? So I think that in his mind, it's, no, we'll figure it out. We'll get the offensive line set up. We got our pieces in offense. We can get a running back, whether it's keeping Swift and, paying a little bit more than what he normally would, but not top dollar for a Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry or something like that. Or he's still, in my mind, I'm thinking if it's Howie, I could see him legitimately going like, no, even if we lose Swift, we can get a 5th round running back, or we can make a trade on draft day and, get a kind of, mediocre back in everyone's eyes, and we'll turn him into a pretty good back and it'll be fine. So I can't buy it. Maybe it happens and it'll be crazy and wild to see Saquon Barkley or a Derrick Henry or, like a top running back on this team. But I'm leaning towards more so if he's going to make a splash and a more surprising splash, that it would be on the defensive side of the ball, and namely with the linebacker position, of someone that he doesn't usually invest in. Because, look at like what everyone's been saying and the writing's on the wall, like, oh my gosh, you got to have a linebacker and we don't have anyone. And it's been an issue. So I could see that more so. And he did joke about in the presser too of like, getting asked, hey, does Fangio have a say on the defense or the personnel or something? He's like, oh, well, he hopes he does, but I think it's more of, and he, he alluded to it as well. He's like, hey, he's been in the league. We respect each other. Like he knows what he's doing, all this other stuff. If you get your guy, and like we've talked about too, it just seems like you would go out there and make that acquisition for a linebacker. So I could see more of the ties. It would still surprise me to get like a top tier linebacker, like a Patrick Queen, or maybe even like a Frankie Louvu. But someone of the upper echelon. But yeah, I keep seeing these reports like you too. And every time I'm like, prove it to me. Like if it happens, great. But until then, I'm going to keep just saying, nope, it's nothing. It's rumors. It's just speculation. There's no way that's going to happen. That's at least where I'm at.
I feel the same way about the CJ Gardner-Johnson rumors that popped up during the combine. Now, it was from a very reputable source, from Jeremy Fowler. I think he's one of the best insiders ESPN has. I just can't see it. I don't see how Philadelphia goes back to CJ Gardner-Johnson and says, hey, remember us? Like how mad you were at us for not giving you the contract that you wanted, and then you left and signed like the same deal, but a 1-year deal for the Lions. He said some pretty rough stuff about Eagle fans, calling us effing obnoxious and the worst fans in the league. And I guess that you can simply just say like, hey, all's fine now, but I would be shocked. Everyone wants CJ Gardner-Johnson, by the way. Like my entire comment section wants CJ Gardner-Johnson back, which I remember how great he was. He did get injured with the lacerated kidney. That was definitely a problem, but he created turnover, something Kevin Byard, for instance, didn't do all but once on Patrick Mahomes in that Chiefs win. I like the player. I don't think the player fits in Philadelphia. I just don't see him coming back to Philadelphia.
I'm with you too on that. I've gotten similar comments as well. And hey, it's cool to get the idea of a safety, someone that has the production or the potential production for CJ Gardner-Johnson. But yeah, like the way that it ended up, I don't think it is just a simple, hey, I said this, didn't really mean it, whatever, just move on. Maybe it is. But, I think the writing was on the wall, too, of how much Howie valued CJ Gardner-Johnson. Now, he may have reassessed it in a sense of, okay, maybe I need a little bit more in terms of a safety. But I don't think it's specifically with CJ Gardner-Johnson. Like, I think it's, let's look at one of these other dudes out here and bring it back. So maybe, maybe we're wrong and there is a possibility. But sometimes I wonder, and we've talked about this also, but it's like, this time of year, maybe more than almost any other, except you could possibly say like the trade deadline or something. But the rumors and speculation are just overwhelming because it's some is true, some is agents trying to get their guys' value boosted up. Some of it is legit of a GM trying to say interest because they want to get another team that is a competitor and thinking about going there, just a bidding war in a sense. It can go all over the place, and so. I don't know. There might be a little bit of a truth in terms of, hey, how much is he looking for, right? Like how he's going to leave no stone unturned. So I wouldn't necessarily doubt it and say, well, is that an impossible notion? Probably not. Everything's possible. But I would say there's a lot of other guys that I would bet. If I'm putting any money on it, there's a lot of other safeties I would say that Howie goes with or lands on the Eagles before CJ Gardner-Johnson.
I think we got to keep an eye on Kamren Curl from Washington because my one problem with the safety market right now is besides Xavier McKinney and CJ Gardner-Johnson, who we just talked about, probably not going to happen, at least in our opinion, there isn't a lot of people under the age of 20. Like Justin Simmons could be available if you trade for him for the 5th round draft pick. You give him a 2-year contract extension. I love Justin Simmons, 31, right? age is a serious thing. There is a very small group of players who aren't quarterbacks who have elite seasons after the age of 30. It's a very small group. Fletcher Cox is a good example of that. And, of course, Jason Kelce. Like, those are two unicorns in what is a normally pretty bad thing. When you turn 30, your production goes down. I think Brandon Graham's a good example of that. He had kind of one good season over the age of 30, and since then, his production has slowly declined. He's more of a role player, the Chris Long role, if you will, than we've seen in the past. So if they can't get McKinney, I think Curl's the next best option just due to the fact that the age is what you want. Unless the Eagles are fine with giving 30-something-year-old Jordan Poyer a one-year deal to try to win a Super Bowl this year, they need to get somebody on a 3 or 4 year deal who is the right age. Like the Malcolm Jenkins signing was so good because of how much time he had left. He was towards 30, close to 30, but he kind of signed with the Eagles and then grow past 30 on however long he was here, 3, 4, 5 years, I don't remember at this point. But we need somebody here for the long run, not a 1 year CJ Gardner-Johnson and then he's gone, or a 1 year Jordan Poyer and then he's gone. Cam Curl is somebody that Christian Navarez just mentioned could be something pretty interesting. Signing McKinney or Curl, book it. I think you're probably right. I think Curl could be a little bit more likely because, again, McKinney, like Josh said earlier, is expensive. But, again, either of them could make some sense. And I do think safety is probably, priority number one when it comes to free agency.
Yeah, I'm with you there. There's definitely priority on it. And I would talk about it a little later in the show, probably coming out tonight. But, yeah, I was doing research of the similar sense. And Malcolm Jenkins was 27, about to turn 28, I think, whenever he was turned in. So it's like, yeah, you still have a lot of prime left. And he got into 30s, sure, but he was still effective enough. But you're getting him for those first 3-ish seasons. So I think that, like, to your point, if you're going to get a safety, it's got to be like 27, I think, in my mind, is about the oldest. Maybe you could look at a 28. I know there's a Jamal Adams out there, and do you want to go with that because he was released? But he's already shown some decline. Maybe it's the system, but then, you're still going, well, it was a Fangio flavor, not the exact same. I know Clint Hurd is not Fangio, but they're together now, so there's some connection you can go with all over the place. But yeah, whenever you look at it and say, hey, who do I want to sign for safety? The report is that Howie Roseman is looking to not only, kind of upskill those positions at safety, but to get younger and have core pieces on the roster, not these 1 year or even 2 year deals. So, I mean, to me, if I'm looking at that, I'm going, yeah, it does need to be a 27-ish old person and younger. And if you look at that list, it does kind of narrow it down quite a bit. So I think, Cam Curl could make a whole lot of sense. It's crazy. And it does also make you reflect too with the news of Jordan Poyer. 7th round selection. Cam Curl, great 7th round selection with what he's done so far. Poyer gets cut because of running back issues way back when. But hey, it's hindsight's 2020. We, sometimes you miss, you don't hit on everybody. Certainly 7th round picks in that sense. But I don't know. Whenever I saw the news, I saw a lot of people reacting to the news about Jordan Poyer and saying like, "Oh my gosh, hey, we should bring him in. Could be a potential stopgap." I'm not totally opposed to stopgaps at times.
Sure.
But it feels like we just went over this and we've got some age to begin with. Is there any inkling on your side of I guess positivity of trying to potentially sign a Jordan Poyer, or you're just out on that?
I'm not out on anything, and this can lead us into the Hassan Reddick conversation because I'm curious where you're at on the whole trade news and the age. Obviously, you'll have Hassan Reddick, but the only way that you sign Jordan Poyer is if you are 100% sure you're going to win a Super Bowl this year, that you're going to compete for a Super Bowl this year. And while we think that they can, I don't think there's any Eagle fan that's like, we have a top 2 team in the league right now. And I'm very pro Eagles this year. I'm very high on the Eagles. They should be the best team in the NFC East. They can definitely compete, but we feel very differently about this year's Eagles than we did even going into last year. I mean, last year, we entered 2023 saying the Eagles are the best roster in football. They're going to be the best football team by far. No one's going to be able to stack against them. They had a great offseason, a great draft, and they were going to dominate, and they ended up not. We feel worse about the Eagles this year, and Jordan Poyer feels like a last year signing when you just needed 1 year out of a guy who would be a veteran on the backside of that defense, kind of like what they hoped Kevin Byard would do. And then, of course, that didn't work out. But I don't know if he's just if he's a guy that makes sense, because I think he wants a 3-year deal. He's probably going to want 2 to 3 years. That way he gets a little bit extra on the backside. That way, in case he does struggle this season, there's still some money to be made. I just don't see it happening. Jeremy Chinn's name is not brought up a lot. I don't think he was tagged. I think he's still an unrestricted free agent, right?
Yes, yeah, he is.
See, there's someone who's
there's a name out there. Yeah,
26.
Mm-hmm.
overplayed his rookie contract, wants to get paid, doesn't need to be paid the highest safety in the league, get him in the top 10. I mean, and again, he's, 5 years younger than Jordan Poyer, 5.5 years younger than Jordan Poyer.
Yeah.
Just makes too much sense. And honestly, that's kind of where I'm at with Haason Reddick. I want Reddick back, but if Reddick wants $25 million a year, see ya. Like, I mean, at the age of that he is going to be, which I think is 31, it's just not smart to give a 31-year-old top 5 money at any position unless they're a quarterback. And I hear these rumors about the Texans and the Patriots. That to me makes a ton of sense. 2 guys that need pass rushers, they need defensive players, they have a ton of cap space. They can sign Reddick to a 3-year deal at $25 million, make him happy, and it won't even break the bank because both of them are probably not Super Bowl contenders. Maybe the Texans, who knows? But that's where I'm at with Haason Reddick, and the same thing goes. I don't want somebody over the age of 30. Unless you're signing to be a rotational pass rusher kind of guy, which Haason Reddick is not. He's a starting pass rusher. Unless you're signing a rotational pass rusher from the Chris Long role over the age of 30 for me, I'm out this year. And that goes for Derrick Henry. I would love Derrick Henry, but if Henry wants big-time money, top 5 running back money, sorry, you're over 30. Like, it's got to be something the Eagles put their foot down on this offseason because the age has been a problem as of late, and we can't keep doing this and giving people giant contracts who are a little bit older.
Yeah, I totally makes sense. And there's always a little double standard to everyone's arguments, I suppose. So I'm totally with you on almost everything as far as the age, except for, and this, I know this goes against it, but with Haason Reddick, I really think that you have to get something done. I don't know. With what I've seen so far, I know there's a potential market. Yes, there's some, decent options. But I really don't like the idea. I'm totally, hey, get this team much younger on the defensive side for sure. Like, get a lot younger on a safety, draft a cornerback, get a linebacker in free agency, or draft a linebacker or 2.
Yeah.
You can get so much younger in a ton of different areas. But for me, I'm like, if you're looking at the contracts of one of these 2, and I really think it comes down to an either or. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's hey, do you want to have roughly for the next 3 seasons, a Haason Reddick or a Josh Sweat? I know Sweat's contract's not up, but it'll be the next one coming up after that. And you're not going to re-sign both. So it's kind of making a decision now, if you will. If you go with Haason Reddick, then you're saying, hey, Sweaty, like, that's kind of the writing on the wall, unless you just do something crazy. But even then, you're kind of already banking on Haason Reddick. But to me, I'm like, that is, I don't know, that's the one veteran and the one presence that I would say I still think another year or 2 he can be very productive. I hear you, and I know the whole argument of age,
right.
And I usually side with that, but 29 now, 30 in, I think, September 22nd, he turns 30. I don't know, just the way that he has played, it's a different type of, I don't know. He's just a different type of pass rusher, edge rusher, if you will. And I think that he can be still productive in a Fangio system, even if he gets up there in the 31, 32 range. So I know it's crazy. And there's a decent amount of people that are saying like, nope, let's get older. Let's move on from it. And I can't knock it. I'm not saying that's the worst idea in the world. I can totally understand that. But for me, it's like just the morale, having that veteran leadership and having the presence of someone on the defense. I think, in my mind, you got to keep Haas, and maybe you can get closer to, I know it's starting to just kind of shave small amounts in terms of the contract, but like a 22, 23 million, because it's going to come down to really the market. Honestly, I think if he goes out there and searches and says, hey, well, I can't, there's not really any team that's willing to do the 25. It's more like the 23, 22 number. And even at that sense, does a team say, yeah, we want to pay for that? Or if I can go get a pass rusher that's the same age or even younger than Haason Reddick and I don't have to give up a draft pick, then maybe I go ahead and do that. So it could end up helping us. And I think that, despite what I may want, I think realistically, it's probably going to come down to that decision of what does the market, hold for Haason Reddick. If the market pays for him, then, I don't think that Howie's going to pay up. But if it's more of there's not as many deals out there, there's not as much options, then we could possibly see something more along those lines of a 22, maybe 23 million. And I would be okay with that. Again, I can understand the knock against that or the counter argument, but for me, that's the one guy on the defense that I feel like it would make sense of re-signing, getting him back here, maybe a 3-year deal like you were mentioning, and somewhere close-ish to that 23 million a year. I could see that getting done.
Let me ask this. Okay, New England offers you 34 overall. Are you going to turn that down for Haason Reddick? their second round draft pick?
Man, that's
34
tough.
overall.
34. Yeah, I guess it does depend on what the second round pick is.
It's not bad, right?
I don't know. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. I'm totally with you. It's just, gosh, I just struggle because I'm like, I know that Sweat can be good, and the analytics say he was better than what the stats say in terms of sacks. But gosh, I don't know, because I go back, like, who's your proven pass? And I get it, the age, you could draft someone there too, but it feels like, I know we're not like, hey, let's just mortgage the future to try to go with like one season. So I totally get that, but I don't know. I would struggle if it's 34. Man, I don't know, that it makes it tough, but I'm still might even lean towards like, I need a little bit more to be okay to go with Hoskins. To me, again, and maybe I'm crazy here. Maybe he just falls off a cliff or he goes to a different team, but like, I'm counting in my head that for the next 2 seasons, Haas is getting 10 plus sacks. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe he can't do that, and he does fall off a cliff much faster, getting post 30 and just can't hold up or keep up to that speed. But in my head, I'm still saying to myself, he is a 10 plus sack player for at least the next 2 seasons. And so with that case, like, you need him out there. You want him out there, and you have him in this scheme. I know you have some other depth, but that's where you've got other selections. You still have draft picks. 34 would be great. I'm not saying that, but I don't know. I still, gosh, in that hypothetical, I think I would still hang on to him. That may be crazy to some people.
See, I think I would take 34 overall. I think that's valuable enough for me and to get someone on a rookie contract. And then if you told me right now you did 34 overall and you still signed Chase Young for $21 million, I mean, to me, that would be an upgrade because you get 2 for the price of 1 and you get someone on a rookie contract. I just think that the problem is that, and I probably agree that Reddick is going to get double-digit sacks the next 2 years. It's just not guaranteed. If he was 27, we'd be having a completely different conversation, and that's my one fear with Reddick. And I understand that someone's got to step up. Your guy Nolan Smith is a great example. If you could give me 6 sacks from Nolan Smith next year, then we could talk here, because Nolan Smith is pennies on the dollar, and Reddick's going to cost you $25 million. So it's going to be the most interesting, I think, move that Howie has to try and figure out. I'm leaning towards that he gets extended for $22 million, like you said. But if I'm Houston and I have unlimited cap space and I have a young, superstar pass rusher in Will Anderson, if I could get Hassan Reddick on that roster, I mean, it could be really, really fun, and you give up 50-something overall because they're a later second-round draft pick. I don't know. Yeah. Him and Swift are these 2 pieces. They're really the only 2 internal pieces that Philadelphia has to actually think about letting go. Everyone else is a second or third stringer aging guy on their current, free agent roster in 2024. So what they do with those 2 is going to tell us a lot about what Howie Roseman's plans are for not only 2024, but also for the future. Because, you don't sign Reddick, you may be thinking a little more long-term. You sign Reddick, you think you're a little more win-ready now. Like, if they go out and sign Reddick, and they throw money at one of these 30-plus-year-old safeties, that tells you that they think they could win now. If they don't do either of those, that tells you that they don't think that they can win right now, in my opinion.
I agree. I hope that they don't do both. I think we probably both do. I really want it to be a split in between. And like I say, the only one in my mind that I've justified that's saying, hey, that's a good decision. I'm literally sitting here playing armchair GM or quarterback, or whatever you want to call it. But still, it's like, the hypothetical in it. I'm saying Hassan Reddick makes sense. Don't go do it for a safety. Like, look at the safety market. There's so many options there. The reason that I like it more so with Reddick, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but like, the salary cap has gone up, but that doesn't mean that there's any extra leverage in the open market, because everyone's salary cap's gone up. It does mean you have extra leverage in terms of extensions, because Hassan Reddick is not a free agent. He's not out there. And so that's where I'm kind of like, either a team has to be willing to significantly give up capital, or a good trade that really makes you say, okay, you know what? Hey, let's go ahead and part ways with Hassan. And, as sad as it'll be and everything else, knowing Howie and that he does try to maximize deals, I think that I can already say this, that, you know what? I'll be satisfied. I'll be a little bit disappointed, yes, for sure, to see Hassan go, but the trade that we would get back in order to make that happen, it could be justifiable, where I'm like, all right, you know what? Fine. I didn't necessarily prefer it, but you got some, what's it, good draft selections, however many it is, if it's just one or a couple, whatever. But otherwise, you figure out how to get something done, and you use that extra space to have Hassan and keep him on the roster. That's what I would prefer. But yeah, you're right. I can't envision a world where I don't know. I can't envision a world where they do the extreme of either one, whether it's signing multiple, older veterans to say, let's go win now, or just to say, scrap it all. We're going to go extremely young. And this is going to be a maybe chance to win this year, but probably not because we've gotten so young. I feel like it's going to be somewhere in between. But yeah, it does certainly depend on where you go with, a couple of those selections, as well as, some other cuts too. Cause I think that we're all in this boat, but how long is James Bradberry going to last? I mean,
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
I'm curious to get your take as well. How long can he be on this roster? Because I know it doesn't help you in any way as far as the cap, but it's really the expectation of how much you're going to get from him. And is he just a body and taking up a roster spot? Do you just assume, hey, let's go ahead and get rid of it? Because you're going to have to pay for him eventually, whether you cut him now, whether you cut him next year, you try to just keep him on the roster for however long you can. I don't know. Do you think that he ends up getting cut within this offseason period at some point, even if it's post June 1?
I think even post June 1, I think the least that you can pay him is $10 million in terms of dead cap money. I think that's kind of the number we're looking at here. And you have $44 million. So if you want to just eat it and get rid of him for the roster spot, then eat it and get rid of him for the roster spot. But you got to have an answer, whether it's one of these first-round rookie cornerbacks. There seems to be, a couple of them that could be really interesting options for Philadelphia in kind of the early teens, especially, by the way, if you go quarterback, the first 4 picks, which a lot of people are saying, for sure the first 3, most likely the first 4, because you're going to bump the Cardinals back. Someone's going to move in, whether a Denver or a Raiders or a Saints can come up to number 4 and get somebody. If that happens, then everybody starts to kind of stagger back, and then you got to get tackles and pass rushers and the elite receivers in this draft. Marvin Harrison Jr. have to go. You could see one of these elite cornerbacks sliding because a lot of these people early in the draft, like in Atlanta Falcons, might want a quarterback, but they don't need a cornerback because they got A.J. Terrell a couple of years ago. So they're going to have options there, but whatever you do with James Bradberry, just make sure you have a plan. And it's not like we hope Kelee Ringo is good. Either they know Kelee Ringo is good enough, okay, great, get rid of James Bradberry. But if Kelee Ringo, if internally, if Vic Fangio looks at the film, and if the people on the staff look at the film and they go, Ringo's raw, and he might not be ready. You cannot go into this season with a liability on one side of the football field because we're in the modern NFL in a passing league in a division full of really good receivers. You saw it last year. People turned and threw away from Darius Slay. Sometimes, a lot of times they did throw at him, but away from Slay and at Bradberry, and away from Bradberry and at whoever was playing nickel that day and torched us. You've got to have solid cornerbacks throughout your secondary or you're going to get carved up in this league, and I just hope that they have a plan, whether it's releasing Bradberry or not, because if they keep Bradberry, they're clearly thinking that last year was an anomaly, and he is going to for sure get back to the normal James Bradberry that we came to know and love in 2022, and even before that, before he came to Philadelphia, and he was pretty darn good. I mean, he's was a second-team All-Pro, got to the Pro Bowl, good player. Yeah. But if you get last year's James Bradberry, then I think you do have to cut him. It's just that question of, mentally, is he a little shot in terms of, the fear of the Eagle fans that we hear talked about all the time? Does he think he's going to have a big comeback chip on his shoulder type year? I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, that's the $1 million or multi-million-dollar question about JB and what is he going to do. I think he's done it, from pretty much all the comments. I'm pretty sure everyone is about in that same boat. But yeah, it's the question of how much are you willing to pay? How much are you willing to eat if you are just to cut him? And I agree with you. Yeah, you make a determination, or you learn very quickly what the Eagles organization feels about Kelee Ringo by making that decision
very quickly.
Even if you go with a corner in the draft, because again, like to your point, you don't try to you try to be as whole as you can, I guess, after free agency, but before the draft. Like, you're not trying to go into it and be like, oh, hey, we got a couple of these, but we'll fill those holes in the draft. Like, the draft is hopefully an ideal situation where you're just taking best available. Yes, you can draft a little bit for need, but if you just say, hey, let's cut Bradberry, we don't have any faith in Kelee Ringo, we'll find our corner in the draft. Sure as the world, it doesn't happen. Like, you go through there, not a great corner, you're having to settle or just reach for someone and things like that. So yeah, I'm with you. You learn very quickly of what they feel of Kelee Ringo and Eli Ricks. So we'll see. But I don't know. If they do decide to keep him, obviously I'm going to hope and I don't know if I could say I'd be optimistic, but I'm going to hope that he does well enough. But there's no belief. I mean, there's absolutely zero belief on my part that James Bradberry can be there. But again, like you said, I mean, he did prove that he was a second team All-Pro for one season, and maybe he can get back to even half of that level. And you decide to keep him. But yeah, that's another one question mark there. You got an Isaiah Rodgers too. That's a question mark. Hopefully can return without too much rust. So there's an ability there, but yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Jason Feder, $2 super chat. Appreciate that. You only give up Reddick if you get Chris Jones. I've seen Chris Jones get mentioned a couple times. I don't think Kansas City lets him out of their clutches. I mean, Chris Jones is like what prime Fletcher Cox was when he was 27. He's the best defensive tackle in the league, minus Aaron Donald, and Aaron Donald's old now, so Chris Jones is the best defensive tackle in the league. You don't let those walk away. Big reason why the Kansas City Chiefs are back-to-back world champs. I'd be shocked if he's on the free agent market. If he is, I mean, Howie would call him. That they would. They give all the money in the world for Chris Jones, but yeah, again, when you have prime Aaron Donald, when you have prime Fletcher Cox, you're not letting that kind of person go. And let's be real. Defensive tackle should not be a major concern for Philadelphia. You talked about Christian Wilkins earlier. He's a luxury.
Yeah.
They should have their defensive tackles, solidified. 2 first-round draft picks the past 2 years. You shouldn't have to go get anybody. Milton Williams is still there. Like, they should be okay. So let's just hope that they are okay and that Jordan Davis is better in year 3 and Jalen Carter is better in year 2 because both of them disappeared pretty dramatically towards the second half of the season.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. You want the being in better shape, obviously, for Jordan Davis and some potential weight issues or whatever the concern was on that side. But Clint Hurt, I think, is going to significantly impact that. He's been around the guys that have gotten into kind of the next level, and that's what he's been viewed as. So you bring him in for a reason. He's familiar with Fangio. Hopefully JD can be in that impact spot. And I think in a way there was report before last season, saying like, hey, Jalen Carter is impacting some guys more than they're impacting him, even though he's a rookie. And I think JD was one of those that fell into that category. Now, JD's great in terms of, from the reports and everything of like an accountability partner for Jalen Carter and being there. But at the same time, I think like, most of us could probably attest to, like, if you're going and you have a workout buddy or you have someone that you're going and doing it every single day with, like, it's a little easier to get motivated to say, hey, we're going to go and run sprints, or we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of extra work after practice, rather than just being by yourself. Like, all right, well, it's just me, like you're just not as much motivation there. And so, having his buddy there on that side, I do expect to take a step. And I mean, let's be honest, like, regardless of having, extra motivation on that side, it's time to prove it for JD. Like, he's been here. It's going to be 3rd season. He needs to take that next step. There was a little bit of progress, but to your point, it kind of died out towards the end of the season. The whole team did, but you got drafted very high for a reason, and Howie had a lot of belief and had a lot of faith. And it's not to say that he can't get to that level. He's not ever, expected to be a sack master, getting lots of sacks in that issue, but still, it's be out there, have your presence felt, clog up the gaps, be a run stopper, push the pocket forward, things like that. And you just stop seeing it towards the latter part of the season. So yes, hopefully he can stay healthy. I think it'll make a big impact. And to your point earlier too about Milton Williams, I think that it's going to be a benefit, hopefully, that we do see Milton Williams more often, because you saw it very late in the season, but it was just a few glimpses. And if he can get a little bit more time, started in I guess earlier in the season, because it felt like it took forever to get him out there, I think he could be a significant player in this part too of the rotation, getting him involved. Questions, I guess, becomes too, like, how much is Fangio going to play him? Because he doesn't typically have a rotation as much as, like what we've seen in the past. But I wonder if it's more of, like, do you think that's more of a Fangio scheme that you might see a little less of a rotation in the pass rush? Or is it going to be, I don't know, overridden of sorts by, it's just kind of an Eagles thing, so Fangio will adapt to that part? Is it any sort of,
I think it's more of an Eagles
two sides
thing. Yeah, I think it's more of an Eagles thing. Now, again, with Cox being gone, it changes things up. And I mean, Cox likely being gone, it changes things up. But I do think that they're going to still rotate, although Jalen Carter should be an every down guy. I mean, he really should be an every down defensive tackle, and then you should have Jordan Davis in there for a lot of plays. He should be able to get after the quarterback. You see it briefly, little flashes here and there. He's not just a run stopper, but we know they're going to take a defensive lineman at some point in the draft. My hope is that it's later, that they can focus on corner. Like, I think a first-round corner is all but a guarantee. I mean, you go through the cornerback list, there are so many good ones, whether it's Quinyon Mitchell, whether it's Tyrion Arnold, both of which are massive. I mean, Nate Wiggins out of Clemson's like 6'2". I mean, he was also really, really big. It's a big physical corner class. They have a lot of speed. They have a lot of instincts. It feels like at 22, you get your cornerback, regardless if you like Keely Ringo or James Bradberry, because Darius Slay, maybe has 1 year left, honestly. Like, at this point, Slay has been on a downward trend, and one more good year of Darius Slay is probably the best that we could hope for right now. You need to have a person in place, and if Bradberry, starts the season and then struggles, you could slide in Quinyon Mitchell, or you could slide in a Cooper DeJean, or you could slide in somebody else who you drafted to pair with Ringo, because a lot of times you need 3 cornerbacks anyway, or a lot of times you would need to run 2 and sub some people out. I just think that that's going to be where they go. My guess is draft-wise overall, they'll go corner first round, and the second round will be what they need in terms of what they don't get in free agency, whether it's a safety, or whether it's a linebacker, or whether it's, if they lose Hassan Reddick, then you try really hard to go ahead and get one of these better edge rushers, whether it's a Jared Verse from Florida State if he's available, a Chop Robinson's a name who's someone that had incredible combine. That's what you look for Philadelphia, and that probably wouldn't take moving up in round 2 to go get someone like that.
Yeah. Chop Robinson, you mentioned, definitely had a crazy, insane combine. And really, a lot of, the athletic scores that we talk about, it's not that it's a guarantee of that of sorts, but you've seen recently, as of the last 3 drafts, of Howie Roseman targeting specific, hey, you got a good athletic score, well, that just naturally bumps you up quite a bit in the eyes of the Eagles and Howie Roseman. So, but I like that. You not maybe official Thomas Mott guarantee, but it's just about, you said cornerback, almost a lock, as close to a lock. I think everyone's very happy to hear that. I will say that.
It should be.
It should.
There's always the idea that they go best player available if one of them were to fall. And sure, I think that there's a very small list of non-cornerbacks who could fall that would make some sense. I think if Dallas Turner was magically there at 17, you could go up and get him if he's available. Byron Murphy from Texas would be very hard for Howie Roseman to pass up on, just because he's the best D tackle in this draft, and Howie Roseman loves D tackles. And it would just, if he's there at 16, just how we move up from 22 to get him, probably. But other than that, I mean, to me, there isn't another player on this overall or in this first round that you got to run the card up to go ahead and get. I don't think Edgerrin Cooper, is worth trading up for. I don't think, obviously, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., he's, a second, third, fourth round guy, wherever it's at. But I think you're going to have your pick of about 3 cornerbacks who are going to be available from 13 till about 25. And you can take your pick, and whether it is, a Tyrion Arnold out of Alabama, which would make some sense because they like the Alabama corners and the Alabama players. Whether it's a Quinyon Mitchell, who just seems to be a freak. I mean, he screams absolutely freak. Is he going to be there at 22? Yeah. I don't know. But that seems to be what you would expect the Eagles to do this year, especially since there isn't that superstar middle linebacker. Like, there's no Micah Parsons in this draft. I mean, you remember, Micah Parsons was a top 10 inside linebacker when picked, and he magically turns into a pass rush, which cost him $2 million today, by the way. So, that's my little vision on what's going on here. Brian Heffron, $5. I'm comfortable with a lot of Eagles' needs. Be available through free agency while using the draft for future players. That's also true, right? Free agent corner, with Jalen Johnson getting tagged and Sneed getting tagged, I think that free agent corner has died a little bit. I think free agent safety, free agent linebacker, and free agent defensive linemen are all very much alive. And then you go for draft corner. You'll get a draft, offensive lineman, and a draft whatever you don't get out of the people we just mentioned in free agency.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's definitely understandable outside. And two, just you mentioned Quinyon Mitchell a second ago as well. There was also something I saw on Twitter of, since 2003, there's only been 2 players, and this is just regardless of like position, but 2 players at the combine that have run 4.35 or faster, 20 reps in the bench press, and 6 feet or taller. And it's Quinyon Mitchell and DK Metcalf. That's it.
He's probably going top 10.
He's a freak. He's a freak athletically, and unfortunately, I probably agree with that too.
But again, think about this. The Eagles did not have this luxury this past season, or in the past draft. The past draft was a very, very weak quarterback draft. You saw C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young go, and that was virtually it. I mean, there wasn't a lot of movement. Also, I'm blanking. Who were the other first-round quarterbacks last year besides those 2? I can't even remember.
I'm trying to think, because it was a surprise whenever Tennessee's I'm drawing blank on Tennessee's quarterback.
Let me see. I'm blank. Oh, Anthony Richardson went too. Okay,
Richardson
went. About Anthony Richardson. But after Richardson, there was not another quarterback. No, there was not. So it was 3 in round 1. So this year, you're having 4 in the first 4 picks. It's a guarantee that you get the first 3, and someone is going to go get J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix there in 4, and whoever of those 2 is not taken in the first 4 will be taken inside the top 10. You will have 5 quarterbacks inside the top 10 this year, and that means Quinyon Mitchell goes from being the 8th overall draft pick to being the 13th overall draft pick. And as soon as you get to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that's trade-up range for Howie Roseman, right? The same thing happened with Jordan Davis a couple of years back. You move up to 13, 12, whatever you need to get, you get your player. That's the beauty of this draft, is there is talent all over the first round, like there's been the past couple of years, but you're going to have so many guys who are going for quarterbacks, and that pushes the rest of the skill players back, and it kind of recycles the draft and gives the Eagles a chance and the guys in the later round to get a higher rounded graded person than what you would normally get at 22, say, this past season. It's going to be very, very beneficial for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I love it. I love it for sure. And shout out to the chat too. Jesse and Matt also saying Will Levis. That's who I was thinking of. But I know he was second round. But I was just thinking he was projected to be.
He was the other one. Yes.
I mean, top 20 even. And then it keeps falling. Yes. And you remember the viral clips of him with his girlfriend and, all the other stuff there. But ex-girlfriend, because it's like, hey. But anyway. Gotta get famous. There's still more likely that, there's going to be more quarterbacks this year. And to your point, that could be a benefit. I don't know. Do you think that Howie's for sure going to trade? He loves to trade in the draft at some point. But do you think he's going to trade in the first round? Do you see it likely that he does?
I think he does.
Okay. Do you think it's more likely that he trades up or that he trades back?
Definitely up. I think for sure up. Yeah. I think Howie has found out in the past, or proven to us in the past couple of drafts, that he has circled people that he loves. Jordan Davis is the best example. They loved Jordan Davis. They wanted Jordan Davis, and they kept it pretty hidden because we were not very in tune with, like, the Eagles and Jordan Davis. It's like gonna be their guy. We kind of had, maybe Fletcher Cox getting a little older. I don't know, but it was not like a big Jordan Davis because we all thought it was going to be Kyle Hamilton, which in the end it should have been. But Howie clearly loved Jordan Davis. He thought Baltimore was going to take him, and he bumped up. I mean, that's a great example. And same goes for Jalen Carter. It was very clear that Carter was their guy, and they had to sit there and pray that the Atlanta Falcons wouldn't take him. And as soon as Atlanta didn't, it was like, ahead of the Bears, give me done, get him. I think Howie circles his people and tries to make sure that the first rounder is a guaranteed star. And while he's missed out of Jordan Davis, so far he hasn't been a star. It feels like he hit with Jalen Carter. And honestly, moving up from 22 to 14 is not that expensive, right? Going from 14 to 5 is that expensive. But when you go from a teen to an early 20, it's not crazy. You're not giving up next year's first-round draft pick. You're giving up a first, maybe a third, a first, maybe a 2, package a player, whatever you got to do. So I think he for sure trades up in the first round. I think that is just how he does, unless someone starts to really fall. But the problem in the draft is if someone starts to fall, other people see it too. And you could have someone at 25, boom, they're at 19, and that changes things. So it's going to be fascinating. It's fascinating that we're getting this close. Like, we have to get through the next couple of weeks of free agency, and that's going to be nuts. We'll be live, first people live as we always are when something crazy happens. But as soon as we get past free agency, you're full on draft, and it's going to get really, really wild.
Yeah, and the mock drafts will actually mean something at that point.
They
too.
will.
I've seen all the craziness, and
right now.
I've already run mock drafts myself. But in terms of like being serious about it and saying, "Hey, this is a legit option," no one knows because free agency, like you say, is not taking place, and we'll have a much better picture of what that's going to be. But I tend to agree with you as far as is Howie going to trade up or trade back in the sense of the draft there, especially for the reasons that you were mentioning of. With so many quarterbacks early, you could get a prospect that's maybe slipping a little bit further than what people might have expected him to go, or at least value-wise. So, if you trade up in that sense, hopefully it's a corner. I do also hope that lots of people do. It hasn't happened in forever, so that's the part too that's like, okay, is Howie going to finally take a corner in the first couple rounds?
Yeah.
Maybe not. But I would love to see it, certainly with the depth that we've seen, and there's several different options out there. So shout out to Iron Gamers. Says hi again, Josh, listening from Montana. Appreciate you hanging out here with us.
Cool.
Yeah, we got some awesome, it's picking up. There's been kind of some ebbs and flows, and everybody knows that how it is in the off season, but it's going to get crazy. It's going to get wild. Monday begins the tampering period, or the legal tampering period. Yeah.
Yeah. Monday you'll have will agree to a deal that the Eagles themselves won't put on Twitter, but they will once it officially happens. Monday is going to be a busy day for us. We are going to be on our cell phones 80 times. I'm going to be refreshing this thing nonstop. My screen time on Monday is going to be scary to watch because it's like all I'm going to do.
What it
all I'm going to do.
But...
Yeah, my fiance's going to hate it, but it's all. I mean, what do you want? What do you want me to do? The Eagles are going to be active. They're going to. You have $44 million. Yeah. You don't get rid of Avonte Maddox if you're going to have a nice, quiet free agent time. Like, oh, we're just going to, sign this one player. No, they're like, we are getting as much money as humanly possible, as many roster spots as we possibly can. Go. And Howie's going to go pretty hard. Now, let's just admit something here, Josh. Going really hard in free agency doesn't always win you a Super Bowl. Okay, so they got to be really smart.
For sure.
And we have had off seasons, Vince Young most famously, where you can have a Cullen Jenkins and a Jason Babin, and I'm trying to think who else was signed that season. Was that Nnamdi Asomugha? I don't think it was. Who else was on the Dream Team that year? It was Cullen Jenkins. It was Nnamdi Asomugha. Let's see. Now I'm curious. Who else did they get? It was Nnamdi, Cullen Jenkins, Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. Oh, yes, I remember him.
Oh, yeah.
Ronald Brown, Donald Lee, Steve Smith. Not that Steve Smith, of course, the other Steve Smith.
Right.
And I said Jason Babin. That's right. That was a big offseason, and I think Babin had one double-digit sack year, and the rest, I mean, they all stunk. They were awful. So... Let it be known that throwing $44 million against the wall does not always stick. So you got to be smart.
No. Yes. Very, very true. Got to be smart with who you sign. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out. So I'm with you. Sometimes, we can be the knee-jerk reaction of, hey, that's a bad signing, or hey, that's a good signing. Same thing with the draft, really. But
every signing is a good signing in free agency. Every signing, it's like, yeah.
We got it.
It's like, not that good. Yeah.
Even with the trades, in fact. So, yeah, even the trade deadline of Kevin Byard and what we thought that would be, but at least there's a reason you release him and free up more cap space and everything else. So if for nothing else, maybe it turns out good in that side. I'm seeing some comments, obviously, of Zach Ertz, the Commanders too.
How about that? Weird. That was weird
situation.
After waiting and like trying to get a chip, and so he signs with Detroit and then doesn't play and immediately loses. It's like, okay, he still wants to play for a winner, and then he signs with a team that's going to draft a quarterback at 2. It's like, I don't understand it. Now, the Eagles don't need him. I've convinced we have no need for Zach Ertz. No need. But I just wish he would have signed with like the Chiefs or like a team that's gonna have the Bills. But what are you gonna do?
I don't know. Maybe it's true. They're just making sure they could pay for Josh Allen and have that coming back to him. But yeah, it's like. It's strange, really. Again, we've seen a lot of either Commanders go to the Eagles or Eagles to the Commanders or, Redskins or whenever it was in the history of that organization. But, it's like going back and forth of those. And so I don't know, maybe it's just the fact, which would not be too surprising because, again, it did take him forever to sign with a contender. But like teams that just can't or teams that are not interested in Ertz, because he's definitely towards the tail end of his career. Like, I don't know how much longer he's got left. And he signed for a 1-year deal. So, make your last $5 million and play for whoever's willing to pay that, and then just sign with the Eagles before you retire. Because he's going to be an Eagle. He's going to retire an Eagle.
He will.
That's a given. But it's just, does it have to be a division rival that he goes to? That was the one part where I'm like,
and really, like the worst division rival. It's like, like the Commanders. Ugh, such a
he just wanted to be reunited with Cliff Kingsbury. So good.
Yeah, because he loves him so much, I guess. Zapper guy says, what was the thinking behind resigning Alberto? Are they not going to use him this year? I think it was that Alberto is one of these NFL players who performs, but overperforms on the eye test. He's big, he's physical, he's fast, he has good hands, blah, 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 blah. He runs well. Eventually he's going to be Antonio Gates, but, we've got to actually get to that point. So, Ron Rivera did just say, I saw that on Twitter, that the Commanders should draft Jaden Daniels. Ouch, Sam Howell. Yeah, that's not good for Sam Howell. Okay, let's quickly end on this. We're going to get a lot more draft talk going forward. Rake, in your mind, quarterbacks 1 through 5. And I'm talking about McCarthy, Penix, obviously, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, and Drake May. How would you rank them, being a non-scout / YouTuber for your living? How would you do that?
Non-scout / YouTuber. Yeah, let me just, I'm very visual. Let me just pull them up real quick so I know you listed them, but I'm weird that way. I need to see them in front of me. Okay, so I know Caleb Williams is the general consensus of one. I kind of go back and forth on him or Drake May, quite honestly, which may be surprising to some people, but I'm gonna. This may be crazy. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna go with Drake May first, actually. That would be unusual.
I don't think it's crazy because I think Caleb Williams has a lot more red flags than people are giving him credit for. They have crowned him the guaranteed next Patrick Mahomes. He's not the guaranteed next Patrick Mahomes. He has a lot of issues. His father seemingly being one of them and meddling very much with his whole, he's like his agent. You don't need an agent. I'll kind of represent you, and you need, ownership in a team, and you're only going to give your medical to people who can actually, draft you. There are a lot of red flags. He should go one. He's the most talented, but there are definitely red flags with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so I would say Drake May, number one. I don't know. It's all a kind of a guessing game and of a sort since we've not seen him, but Drake May one. Everyone's so high on Caleb Williams, and that's the part where it's like it feels weird not even putting him at 2, but
I think he's got to be at 2.
Probably 2. Probably, yeah. 3, I'm going to say. I really think that Bo Nix is going to be better than some people think. I might put Bo Nix at 3 and then put Jaden Daniels 4 and then JJ McCarthy at 5.
Okay.
And then Penix.
People are high on JJ McCarthy. See, I would put Penix ahead of JJ McCarthy. I just don't buy this whole idea that JJ McCarthy is really good and they just decided not to use him at Michigan. It's like Jim Harbaugh says he's the best quarterback in this draft class, and yet he threw like 15 times a game. It just doesn't make sense. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah. Jesse says Caleb Williams is a bust, will not handle adversity in the NFL. He seems weak mentally. He does seem weak mentally. He definitely does. And he doesn't have that chip. Like Michael Penix and Bo Nix are going to have that chip on their shoulder, right? Because very few people put them in the top 2, top 3. Like Drake May is kind of unanimous inside the top 3, and Jaden Daniels gets a lot of love despite being like 100 pounds and built like a toothpick. Like I don't know how he survives getting tackled in the NFL, but I thought the same thing about Lamar Jackson. So,
and they see Lamar Jackson and they're like, that's going to translate. He's going to be the next one. So maybe,
but that's what everyone tries to do. I mean, the Giants thought that what's his name? Daniel Jones was supposed to be the next Josh Allen, and then now you're getting Caleb Williams is supposed to be the next Patrick Mahomes, and now you have the next Lamar Jackson. Like it's hard to duplicate. So I just don't see that there's a chip. There's no chip on Caleb Williams' shoulders. He's making buku bucks at USC. Living that massive $1 million apartment complex. He already has been given the world, and he's trying to do it without an agent. It's just it would be a little scary. They got to do a lot of research on Caleb Williams, and I agree with Iron Gamer that Michael Penix is very underrated. I know he has injury concerns.
Yeah.
Apparently he passed all of that with flying colors at the NFL Combine. The injury concerns are definitely an issue. I think Bo Nix is a sleeper. I mentioned earlier 5 quarterbacks in the top 10, but if JJ McCarthy is that loved, you could get to 6 because of Bo Nix, right? Nix could be taken, because there are a lot of quarterback needy teams. Denver outside the top 10. The Raiders need a quarterback. Commanders need a quarterback. Obviously, the Patriots need a quarterback. The Falcons need a quarterback. The Bears need a quarterback. I mean, that's like 7 teams that need quarterbacks. And once you get rid of the whole, where does Russell Wilson go and where does what's his face Kirk Cousins go? I mean, 5 people for sure need quarterbacks inside the top 13. It's gonna be every year we say this is gonna be the crazy NFL draft. This might be though out of the most recent 5 years the craziest one because of how many quarterbacks there are, right?
Yeah, there's a ton, and it's going to be unexpected. It's the fact that, like you say, there are so many quarterbacks, but very easily. I mean, you could see the rankings that I've seen from people that have tried to list, hey, where's and heck, we see it here in the chat section too. I mean, everybody's all over the place, and you can't totally knock it. You say, hey, if you pick Caleb Williams, that's fine. Like that's the general consensus, but I've also seen it a number of different people, whether you want to go with a Jaden Daniels or a Penix or Bo Nix or, you throw anyone, Drake May, it's so many different options. So, once it's draft night and someone makes a either crazy trade or takes a guy that's maybe ahead of others and is like, whoa, hey, so-and-so is available. We didn't think he was going to be available here. It's going to be, all hell's going to break loose. It's going to be chaotic. So, and we will be streaming live. It'll be great.
We will be live for that. Flipping the Bird says, Leo, Josh Thomas, love you guys. I watch you guys. Keep crushing it. I'm meeting Brian Dawkins this weekend. Hey, tell Brian Dawkins he needs to come on the show. We'd love to have him. Have fun meeting him. Tell him that we said hi.
Appreciate that. Yeah, but that's awesome.
That'd be fun. That'd be fun.
Let's go.
All right, we will be back next Wednesday. We are getting back into our rhythm here. Josh was on a cruise, and I was down in Key West, as you can tell by my sunburnt face. I got lots of comments on that today. So Josh did not go outside on the cruise, it appears, as his skin has not changed color. I was outside the entire time.
No, it was actually weird. It was like rainy and cloudy almost the entire time. So with the exception of
You just drink and gamble. That's what you do on
cruises.
Pretty
right? much. Yeah, we lived in the casino basically. So
there you
go. But you can tell there was not much sun. So.
Not a bad time. All right. For Josh Davis, I'm Thomas Mott. We're going to sign off here. Go Birds. He's got a show coming out tonight. Got a show coming out tomorrow, as we always do. Be sure to watch those, subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.
We'll see you then. Go Birds.